Today I'm going to show you how to make this really easy knitted Kindle holder. So this is a reversible knitting pattern, which means that this stockinette stitch looks the same on the other side as well. This stitch is perfect for scarves and blankets because you don't have a wrong side. So if you can see the inside, it looks just the same. There's no bumpy purl side on the reverse side. And I will show you how to do this stitch. It's super easy, works up really relatively quickly. Like I said, it would be perfect for blankets and scarves. But today I'm going to show you how to make a little Kindle holder. You can also customize this to make it for your phone as well. So today I am going to use this 5-weight yarn, just some extra scraps that I had, a size 13 knitting needle, and for the buttonhole, which is optional, I used a size 8mm crochet hook to slip stitch across the top and create this little button loop at the top here. You'll also, of course, need a button, a yarn needle, and a pair of scissors. Once you have all that together, let's get started. To start, we're going to cast on an odd number of loops onto our knitting needle. So just grab your first color, leave a good length on the end so you have enough to cast on with. So I'm only going to cast on 23 . Once you have the odd number of loops on your knitting needle, you're going to turn your needle so you're holding the needle with all of the loops in your left hand. Pick up your second needle and we're going to work row 1. So this is a 2-row repeat. Row 1, we're going to knit that first stitch and make sure your tail is out of the way. You don't want to be working with that one. So you want to knit that first stitch and draw that off your hook, off your needle. We're going to put the yarn to the front and work the next stitch off just as a slip stitch. Put that yarn to the back now and knit the next stitch. So we're only really using the knit stitch. Every other stitch we're going to put the yarn to the front and just slip off a stitch. Put the yarn to the back and knit the next stitch. And you're going to do this all the way along the needle until you get to the very end. And you just want to go very slow. Take your time until you get the hang of knitting one and slipping purlwise the next. Alright, so I've got 2 loops on my needle. I'm going to slip that one, and then the last loop should be a knit stitch. And there you've done your first row. So you can't really tell what it looks like yet, but you'll begin to see it after we get a few rows in. Because we ended with a knit stitch, we want to do the opposite on row 2. So anytime we come across a knitted stitch, we're going to slip stitch it purlwise. Anytime we come to a slip stitch, we're going to knit that stitch. So like I said, since we ended on a knit stitch, we are going to just slip this stitch off, and our yarn is already hanging in the front, so you don't have to worry about doing anything there. So I just slipped that first stitch off. I'm going to carefully maneuver my yarn to the back now, and now I can continue. So I'm going to knit the next stitch, move my yarn to the front and slip the next stitch purlwise. You always want to move that yarn to the front and slip it purlwise. Next stitch, knit. So you want to work this pattern all the way down your needle until all of your loops are onto your right-handed needle. And we're ending on a slip stitch. So I've got one more loop, and that is a slip stitch. And kind of tighten up if you can, and you can start to see that pattern forming. So now we're back onto an odd row. So you can change colors on any odd row. Once you have those first 2 rows done, you can change colors. You can also just do this all in one color. It looks equally as cool. I'm going to show you how to change colors. So if you're not changing colors, you can just continue. This was a slip stitch that we ended on, so we're going to be knitting, slipping, knitting, slipping. To change colors, we're going to grab our secondary color. I'm going to pick up my left-handed needle, and because we ended on a slip stitch, I am going to just knit. So I'm going to put my needle in, and I want to drape this yarn, or my new color, right over it, and that acts as a yarn over, and kind of keep it tight so it doesn't want to fall off your needle. And then you can just work it as you would a knit stitch. It's going to be pretty loose here, so you just have to be careful until you get further up in your project. I'm going to put my yarn to the front and slip the next stitch. I'm going to go really slowly at this point because that is really loose and I don't want to lose any stitches. And end with a knit stitch. So because we ended with a knit stitch, I know that we need to start with a slip stitch. So we're going to slip stitch, and I want to make sure that my yarn is in the front. I'm just going to slip that off. I'm going to hold everything tight and work my yarn to the back side. And now I can knit this next stitch. Bring it to the front, slip, bring it to the back and knit. And you're going to work this all the way back, and then I'll show you how to change back to the blue color. Going to end with a slip stitch, and that one's real loose, you can see. So I'm just going to, again, pull these rather tight. Now you can see when you change colors on your second row, you should have all of the same color on there. That first row is where you can tell it should be alternating, and that's sort of an easy way, at least on that first row, to make sure that all of your purls are slipped and not actually purled. You can kind of see how our little fabric is coming along. We ended on a slip stitch, so I want to knit. So I'm going to put my hook in and grab that blue color, and I want to make sure that it's the actual yarn that is attached to my ball of yarn and not that little end. I'm just going to knit. And again, this is going to be really loose until you kind of get up away from that join of the new color. So we knit that stitch. I'm going to bring that blue to the front and slip. And you just work this 2-row repeating pattern over and over and over until you get the height that you want on this project. So I have worked quite a few rows here. You can see how long my piece of fabric is. And what I'm going to do is just fold it up just to measure, see if my Kindle will fit down in there snugly, and it does. So I'm ending on this blue color just so it matches up here, but that's just a personal preference. You can end on whatever color you'd like. So now we're going to cast off. So to cast off, you're going to take your right-handed needle, and we're just going to do a simple cast off. So I'm going to put my hook in from the front, my needle in from the front, grab my blue yarn over, and knit that first stitch, and I'm going to knit the second stitch as well. Now I'm going to pull this first stitch that we knit with my left-handed needle. I'm just going to stick that needle under that first loop and draw it over and off. Same thing with the next stitch. Knit it and then pull that loop up and over. Now you've casted off all of your stitches. You've got one left on your needle. I'm going to pull this loop up a little bit and take a crochet hook and just put it in there. I'm doing this so I can work a slip stitch down to the center and make a little loop so I can add on a button. For the buttonhole, I'm just going to chain one and turn my work, and you can see our cast off has these little bumps that you can use as stitches. So I'm going to slip stitch just about to the center and then chain 4, skip a few, and then keep going with my slip stitches. Alright, so I have taken care of all of my ends. I have seamed up the sides here, and this is of course the inside of my bag. So now we can reverse this. I've got my little button loop here. I just have to sew that button on. I've got my button on now. I've got my Kindle inside. Just going to pull that up. Pull the button through, and there we are. So here's our little Kindle holder. I love how this fabric is completely reversible, and it makes a nice sturdy, almost a padding for something like a Kindle. You can even make one custom to fit your phone. Thanks for watching. Until next time, happy knitting everyone. Bye.